This is my attempt to explain a whole lot about the sun and about God, and I will be reading to you from several different books, and all of them are books that I read on my channel. I will put the playlist for them over in the description bar in case you want to listen to the whole book being read. This first part I'm going to read is from Walter Russell's book, The Secret of Light. And he's talking about our seeming duality. We seemingly live in two universes, the still cosmic mind universe of knowing, and the moving thoughts of mind rhythmic wave universe of sensing. We cannot sense the cosmic universe of God's knowing, nor can we know the thought wave universe of God's thinking. The cosmic mind universe of the one light of all knowing is all that is. The vibrating thought wave universe of sensing merely seems. The cosmic God light, the one still light of God, is the cosmic light which watches over all creating things at countless points, locatable by man but invisible to man. Man's senses have misled him into believing in a force called magnetism, which attracts compass needles and lifts tons of steel. These phenomena of motion are due to electricity and not to magnetism. The cosmic light is absolutely still. It neither attracts nor repels. We now need to comprehend the nature and purpose of the magnetic poles of suns, planets, and all other moving extensions of the one light. Likewise, we need to know the nature and purpose of the two electric workers which interweave this light mirage of seeming motion and dissolve it sequentially for rebuilding. This will give a foundation of knowledge to man which will enable him to see behind the illusions which deceive his senses. The time has come in the history of man's journey from his material jungle to his spiritual mountaintop, when it is imperative that he must live more and more in the cosmic light universe of knowing, and less in the electric wave universe of sensing. Man must know that his power lies in the stillness of his centering self, and not in the motion by means of which he manifests that stillness. He must know that his self is God in him. Also, he must know gradually the dawning awareness of the cosmic light of God in him, for with it comes an awareness of his purposefulness in manifesting the light and the power to manifest it. Man must now know the universe of God for what it is, instead of what his senses have made him believe it to be. Also, he must know that this forever creating universe, which seems so real to him, is but a cosmic cinema conceived by the master playwright. It is but an electrically projected, spectrum-colored light and sound wave motion picture play of cause and effect, thrown on the black screen of image space and time. The cause is real. The effect is but a simulation of the reality. The self of man is cause. His self-creating body is effect. God's universe of magnetic light is static. God's perpetually creating electric wave universe of two moving lights is dynamic. It forever moves. The two moving lights are projected through each other from the static one to create the illusion of the ideal they but manifest. The illusion which manifests the idea of creation through seeming motion is not the ideal which it seemingly manifests. Creation is the product of mind knowing, expressed in form by mind thinking. The product of mind is not the ideal which it simulates. No ideal of mind is ever created. It is but simulated by form and motion. Ideal is eternal and belongs to God's still universe of knowing. Form of ideal in matter is transient, but is eternally repeated as transient form of ideal. Now, I will skip down to another explanation of this very thing where Russell explains with the ideal of iron, using iron as an example of ideal. We think of iron as a hard, cold metal with certain properties which makes it possible for us to manufacture it into many products. When iron is in its frozen condition, we do not think of it as light, but we can photograph by it if we heat it to incandescence. Not only is it then light, but all of the properties which make it available to us as iron have then gone out of it. It is as though the divine tapestry weaver had unwoven all the threads of the ideal of iron and sorted them into their spectrum colors, thread by thread. The physicist can tell you what element those threads of light would be if frozen. Upon looking at them, he would say, that is iron. But it would not be the form of iron as we know it. It would be the formless ideal of iron as the sun knows it. There is no separateness. In the incandescent sun is all ideal that earth knows. The ideal of the apple of earth is in the sun, likewise the wood of the tree and the violet in the meadow. Likewise the cool earth is there, with its rivers and mountains. All ideal is one ideal in the light of the sun. The light of the sun is never divided into its many seeming separate ideals until it is electrically extended from the sun, and those extensions electrically echoed back to it. And this is important you understand, those extensions electrically echoed back to it. The sun is a crucible which melts all ideas into one, then sets them out into space to cool and separate into many units of that one. Likewise, ideal of mind never becomes the many ideas of creation until electricity divides that one ideal into many separate parts. The one light cannot be divided, but extensions of the one light can appear to divide it. The spots of sunlight upon the cathedral floor are many, but they are all extensions of the one light of their source in the sun. Likewise, all mankind is an extension of the one ideal of man, for man is but one in the light of his source. Likewise, all moving extensions of the one still light are manifested in the white light of suns and the black light of their surrounding space, are but extensions of one source. Now, I'm going to jump to another book here. There was once a race, a root race of the human family who lived on Neptune. Neptune was one of the first planets in our solar system to have human life. And I'm taking this that I'll read now from a portion of the book called The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East. And there is one called a Manu who projects from his self a picture of the planets that were formed. And now he's talking about the planet Neptune. The people that he's telling this to can see this happening because he can project it from his mind like on a screen in front of them. And this is his speaking of Neptune. Neptune was now sufficiently cooled and its surface developed to a stage where it was able to support life. It was upon this planet, as it occupied this orbit, that the conditions for the support and nourishment of human life, which the earth enjoys today, were brought to the stage where the human life element could attach itself to the select amoeba necessary for the support and manifestation of the human form. Thus came into existence the first human race, not the animal amoeba, but the human amoeba, the amoeba of selective type and character, with intelligence that could and did shorten the process of evolution. Upon this planet, conditions were perfect for selective human development, and this development came on at a rapid pace. There were no lower animal organisms, thus animal life did not develop. The planet was occupied by superior human beings who rapidly developed into a perfect human race who were all able to supply and support themselves directly from cosmic or aqueous substance. Thus they would have been termed gods upon this earth. Many of the legends and myths of today have their inception in and are built around this great people. They were exactly like the principle that brought them into existence. This race, through their ability to express beauty and perfection, began to surround themselves with perfect and beautiful conditions. In fact, they built the planet into a paradise of beauty and perfection. It was intended that this race should forever maintain this perfect condition, which they had accomplished by absolute control of all the elements. Thus, when they put forth a desire, it was fulfilled instantly. As time moved on, some began to evidence inactivity and selfishness in attempting to outdo their fellow man. This condition brought on divisions, and divisions brought on selfishness and greed, which caused dissensions. The time that should have been spent in creating for service and advancement was dissipated in strife and contention. Instead of holding closely to their source, they were differing and separating widely, until all but a few lost that which was high and noble. All but the few let go of their security and protection. This caused a vortex to gather around the planet. Instead of holding to the perfect pattern of the divine, whereby they could have accomplished a complete universe of divine attributes upon divine planets, they gave way to such an extent that when the next outburst occurred, it was so enormous that when the nebula was consolidated, the resulting planet was larger in mass than all of those which had previously come forth. I want to interject something here. I talk about this in another video called The Formation of the Planets. They all were ejections from the sun. And this Neptune, their thoughts were so discordant. And what I'm getting through with trying to get through to people with this is that our thoughts go into the sun. And all these discordant thoughts from Neptune cause the next expulsion to come forth as the great planet Jupiter. The excess energy given out was so gigantic that it swept Saturn out of the cradle orbit into the orbit now occupied by Mercury. The outburst was so tremendous and the solar system so filled that great quantities of asteroids formed, arrayed, and aligned themselves around Saturn. Being of a different polarity, they could not coalesce with Saturn. Thus they were independent, and their only alternative was to align themselves around the planet of Saturn as bands of asteroids. As such, they are commonly called the rings of Saturn. Some of these asteroids are as large as planets. The force swept Neptune, the great and beautiful, out into the orbit now occupied by the Earth. All of its magnificence with its great inhabitants, save a few, were swept away. Those who were preserved had never let go of their divine heritage, and they had so constituted their bodies that they could seek safety in the emanations of the spirit sphere, which is all around and interpenetrates the 91 universes now in existence. In this condition, they have been able to preserve their identity and knowledge and give it out so that it will never pass out of existence. It is through And by these ideas that we live today, we claim kinship with these great ones. They compose the root race of humanity. By them, the ideas of humanity have been preserved, and the Godhead of man has been maintained. Okay, that was from Margaret Storm's book. And I just wanted to express here that the thoughts we think go to the sun. And the solar flares that we're seeing are because of our thoughts reflected back to us by the sun. That is my theory. Because of reading these different books, I've read so many of them in the course of a few years, and putting two and two together, this just seems to be what is happening now. Now, again, in another book by Beard Spalding, The Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, from Book 2, Chapter 5. Jesus was speaking in this part of the book, and someone asked him, what about hell, and what about the devil? And in telling about that, he explained something about the sun. At one time, conversation led to a point where one of our party asked where hell was and what the devil meant. Jesus turned quickly and said, hell or the devil has no abiding place except in man's mortal thought. Both of them are just wherever man places them. With your present enlightenment, can you place either in any geographical position on earth? If heaven is all and surrounds all, where could hell or the devil be placed ethereally? If God rules all and is all, where could either be placed in God's perfect plan? If we take the science of things, we know there is a legend told here that all the heat and light and many other natural forces are contained right within the earth itself. The sun of itself has no heat or light. It has potentialities that draw the heat and light from the earth. After the sun has drawn the heat and light rays from the earth, the heat rays are reflected back to the earth by the atmosphere that floats in the ether. The light rays are drawn from the earth in about the same manner and are reflected back to the earth by the ether. As the air extends only a comparatively short distance, the effect of the heat rays varies as you leave the earth's surface and ascend toward the outer limits of the atmosphere. As the air becomes less dense, there is less reflection. Consequently, as you ascend into the higher altitudes, the heat becomes less and the cold increases. Every heat ray, as it is drawn out and reflected, drops back to the earth, where it is regenerated. When you have reached the limit of air, you have reached the limit of heat. It is the same with the light rays. They are drawn from the earth and are reflected back by the ether. As this ether extends much further from the earth than the air, the light rays extend much further before they are reflected. When you have reached the limit of the ether, you have reached the limit of light. When you have reached the limit of heat and light, you have reached the great cold. This cold is far more solid than steel, and it presses down upon the ether and the atmosphere with almost irresistible force and holds them together. Hell is supposed to be warm, and his satanic majesty abhors cold, so you could not find any lodging place out there for them. So, like, physically, where could hell be? Right within the mind of man. This is me interjecting. So, what about our thoughts? What about the atom? We need to understand the atom. Margaret Storm, in her book, The Return of the Dove, talks about the third root race and the laggards. Listen carefully and you will see that we still have the laggards still lagging on earth today. Now that Spalding said was about the first root race, and Margaret is speaking of the third root race. And she's talking about ascension here. The clue to the ascension in olden times as well as now is the use of love. If there is any discord shown toward matter, toward a physical atom, it is impossible to raise the vibration in a natural way. but only by the use of brute force such as modern scientists advocate. This cord has the effect of lowering vibrations. The early initiates were trained by adepts from other planets who came to the Earth to assist the first inhabitants. Each individual, in experimenting with matter, was trained to lovingly call forth the God substance which forms the nucleus of the atom, inviting it to rise and return to the source. The entire atom responded by increasing the rate of its revolution and rising. This method is still the one and only method by which the ascension can be achieved today. Each and every human being must make the ascension from his earth classroom before he can progress further in evolution elsewhere. Love is the one and only answer. Jesus, the great disciple of light, demonstrated the ascension 2,000 years ago, but the dark forces working within churchianity perverted the true teachings, and the long-suffering public continues to suffer and pay the bills. The third root race, under the loving direction of its Manu, spread its activities out over the globe to the east and the west, the north and the south. The objective was always the same: to call forth the God essence within the rays, to anchor that divine energy within matter, thus spiritualizing the very earth itself, so that eventually the atoms would open like budding flowers, freeing the imprisoned light in the center of the atom, a light which had gained in brilliance because of its service of the planet. The light thus set free by the action of the descending cosmic rays joined the great ascending flame that rose from the earth on its way back to the source. Meanwhile, as more and more souls incarnated on the earth, more and more energy was called forth from the cosmic rays. More matter was spiritualized, and the area of anchorage extended deeper into the earth. The earth became more and more perfect in form as the people expended more and more love upon matter, and attained more mastery in freeing imprisoned light. Such a high state of harmony was reached by the third root race that when the call went forth for a classroom for the laggards, the earth people responded. The population agreed to receive the laggards, permitting them to come in through the natural gates of birth. Birth in those days was not a physical process, however, but electrical. It was accomplished by the crossing and union of positive and negative light rays projected forth by the chosen parents. This system will again be restored on the planet Earth during the present Aquarian age. The Earth people felt quite confident that the laggards, being born into such an atmosphere of joy and harmony, would quickly adapt themselves to the young and progressive evolutionary procedure on the planet, and forgetting their past would join in developing the divine plan on this globe. I need to interject something from having read that book. The laggards, you will want to know who they were. They were those who had failed so many times on their planet to evolve themselves that they could no longer incarnate on their own planet that they were from. So, Earth was young, and Earth was a schoolroom for them, and that's why they were welcomed here. Earth beings at that time thought we could help them to evolve themselves. Back to the words. The laggards were brought in as souls, but their casual bodies were encased in dense astral bodies of ugly coloration because they were heavily burdened with karma resulting from their misspent lives on other planets and stars. Their mental bodies were beclouded with self-created thought forms of monstrous appearance, and they were unable to absorb more than a flicker of light from their individualized God nature. Therefore, being virtually helpless, they had to be brought to the earth in spaceships manned by special teachers, and they were then held in a specially prepared astral atmosphere near the earth until each had a chance to be born in a physical body. These physical bodies were not as dense as they are now, but light and quite ethereal, with a high rate of vibration. The people did not walk, but levitated. There was no physical labor or struggle of any kind, no distress and no disease. The high hopes which the earth people had for the laggards did not manifest. The laggards, once in physical bodies, continued their old ways. They refused to respond to their new harmonious environment. They insisted on using their own free will to create their own monstrous follies. They declined to assist in the unfolding of the divine plan. Moreover, they polluted and poisoned the radiant atmosphere with their astral emanations. Scorning all cooperative endeavors spiritually, they grew and matured in physical grossness. They mated and produced offspring of their kind. They poisoned their physical bodies with their own misguided emotions and thoughts of hatred. They introduced disease on the planet. They experienced death instead of the glorious ascension back to the source. They lost all contact with their source. They refused to believe in the One. Their vision was so beclouded that they could not see the interaction of the descending rays and the ascending flame. They doomed themselves to long, wearying cycles of birth, death, and rebirth. For a long while, the third root race people, host to the laggards, managed to maintain the status quo among themselves. They kept the sacred flames burning brightly upon their altars. They adored the One. They kept green the memory of those paradisical days before the laggards came. But the frightful contamination became worse. The atmosphere around the earth became gloomy and dark, and rays could no longer penetrate to the vegetation and soil. Only the physical sunlight, devoid of the life-giving God essence of the great universal virtues, reached the people. No longer did the earth give forth its natural note of harmony. Its great vibrant chords were missing from the music of the spheres. No longer did the earth give off light, for the flame had ceased to rise. This, in brief, is the story of the fall of man. Now, this may be the story of the fall of man, but we cannot fail completely. We will recover, and below is the reason. First, I must speak of the great central sun, and this is from the life and teachings of the masters of the Far East. And this tells you just a little bit about the great cosmic central sun. The stupendous mass of the great cosmic sun exerts so profound an effect upon light rays that they are reflected completely around the cosmos. They are also definitely affected and reflected by coming in contact with the atomic or cosmic rays, and their particles are thrown out of place to such an extent that thousands of images of planets and stars are reflected from one collection. Thus, thousands of planets and stars appear to be misplaced, and many more thousands of the images are again reflected. When we look through the universe, the images show both sides, and we see the light that was released hundreds of millions of years before, which has made the complete round of the cosmos. Thus, we get two images instead of one. One image is of the planet as it was hundreds of thousands of years ago, while the other is as it was hundreds of millions of years ago. This follows through the whole great cosmic order. In many instances, we are actually looking at the great past, and we can also see into the future by the same means. There is an invisible connection, like the thought or heart impulse amplified billions of cycles, through which spiritual orders go forth, that controls all of the universes. These great throbbing impulses or heart throbs go out through the intelligence which pervades the aqueous that surrounds the cosmos, which is its spiritual counterpart. It is these gigantic heart throbs that send the life currents into every atom of the complete cosmos and keep them moving in perfect order and rhythm. In this infinite cosmos vastness, there can be no sick or discordant cells, as one sick or discordant cell would throw all out of unison. Then for a time chaos would result. This also pertains to the human organism when disturbed by discordant thought. It was from this central control that the term Godhead was evolved. The heartbeat of the human unit corresponds to this heart throb, although in miniature. Man is from and is a counterpart of the intelligence which has control of the whole aqueous source. He is coexistent with the source and draws all direct from that great aqueous reservoir, just as a great central sun draws from that source, but in greater degree because of his union with the greater intelligence which is directing the source. Man, the unit of humanity, is a well-organized divine universe, though infinitesimal compared with the great whole of the universes. Yet man, as the unit of humanity, when he assumes and takes actual charge of his divinity, is most necessary, as he is of the great intelligence that is before and in control of the whole divine plan of all the universes. Thus, would all the universes be destroyed? Man, in complete cooperation with primal intelligence, which interpenetrates and pervades all emanations in the aqueous as well as down to the lowliest physical form, starting with a light emanation, could rebuild all the universes. Should such a catastrophe occur, man not only has the power, but is the power that does resolve himself back into primal intelligence, wherein there is no destruction. When quiet again reigns and harmony is restored, it matter not to man, when he is back into primal intelligence, how many billions of ages pass to bring about primal perfection, in order that the whole process may be started over again. Here man maintains oneness with infinity and can afford to wait until the time is ripe for the bringing forth of the universe. Then, with the preserved consciousness of former experiences, he is better equipped to assist in the bringing forth of a more perfect and lasting condition. In this man can never fail, as he is more definite than any form, and failure is not written in his horizon or in his consciousness. The infinitesimal becomes the infinite in all forms. When the wise sage says, "I am deathless, ageless, eternal, there is not a thing in life or light that I am not," he is looking into and sees this vista. This is true divinity. The Ascension is truly his. Now, here is more from that same book, Jesus speaking about God being light emanation. God our Father is pure light emanation, and from this vibrating light all come forth. In this vibration all stand together with God. In these vibrating emanations of light all material consciousness is erased, and we see creations projected forth from the formless into form, all things renewed every instant. In the primal cosmos, aqueous, or God substance, all things exist, and because of that existence, the vibrations are so high that none perceive them. Unless one stands forth in spirit as we do, it is necessary to raise the vibrations of the body to spirit vibrations. Now we can see creation going on all the time, as creation is caused by the radiation of cosmic light vibrations generated in the great cosmos. And this radiation is the great universal life or light energy that sustains all and is called the Father of radiation or vibration. It is the Father of radiation because its radiation will shatter any other radiation or vibration. In reality, it only sets them aside in order that other forms may take their place. When our body vibrates in tune with spirit vibrations, we are light vibrations, the greatest of all vibrations, God the Father of all vibrations. It will soon be proved that these cosmic rays constitute such a terrific bombardment that they are destructive of so-called matter. These rays are from the source of all energy, the Father of all elements, the source from which all elements come. This is not destruction. This is transmutation from so-called matter to spirit form. It will soon be known that these cosmic rays have such tremendous penetrating power that they penetrate through all mass, shattering, as it were, the very heart or nucleus of a so-called atom, transmuting it into atoms of other substance, and thereby creating other elements of higher order. And in this way, creation advances into a higher emanation of pure light or life itself. These radiations, which have such tremendous penetrating power, are readily distinguished from all radiations coming from the Earth or Sun galaxy, and have complete control over all these radiations or vibrations. It will soon be known that these radiations come from a universal source, unseen, and that the Earth is continuously subjected to a terrific bombardment of these rays that are so potent they change or transmute atoms of one element into the infinite particles of another element. It will also be found that when this cosmic ray strikes the nucleus of an atom, it does shatter it. It's separated this atom into the minute particles of another substance, causing transmutation from a lower to a higher element. Thus, these radiations do not destroy matter, they transmute it from a lower to a higher element, from the material to spiritual. Just want to interject here. Isn't it strange? The Hadron Collider, they're trying to shatter atoms into one another. And if they could do that, they would create a higher element like they're talking about here. This higher element is as man dictates. It is higher as he names and uses it for a higher purpose. When man stands forth in spiritual vibrations, he can fully determine and regulate these rays and their mode of action. Thus, to man standing in spiritual vibrations, transmutation is going on all the time, all about him. Transmutation is but creation in the higher sense. Thus, all are created where they stand. Creation never ceases. It is continuous, never ending. The emanations of radiation from the cosmos are made up of light and are composed of so-called light bullets that burst forth from the cosmos. The greater universe is around and encloses and surrounds all universes to the extent that the suns absorb and bring into its central sun, conserve, concentrate, and build up all the energy that is dissipated from the universes. This central sun becomes so full of vibrating, pulsing energy, and this energy becomes so condensed that the so-called light bullets are shot out with such radiating force that when they collide with the nucleus of another atom, that atom is shattered but not destroyed. Its particles are transmuted into particles of other elements, which are finally assimilated into the element to which they belong. Then that element comes to life. Life is the energy that is released by this so-called bombardment of light bullets, and that portion absorbed by the particles released is called the life of the particle, or of the whole element, while the portion of the energy released but not absorbed as life is returned or drawn back to the cosmos, as it were. It is again concentrated and condensed until it can again be shot forth to collide with and shatter other atoms, thus creating the particles that go to create the atom of another element. Thus creation is continuous, everlasting, expanding, and concentrating, then through reduced vibrations condensing into form. This intelligent, emanating energy is God, controlling the universe around us, as well as controlling the universe of our bodies, which are spiritual and not material. This transmutation is not disintegration. The intelligence so directs that only a few of those light bullets strike the nuclei of other atoms at a time ratio and in complete conformity to law, so that no manifestation is overbalanced. Man, one with this supreme intelligence, can in an orderly way step up this impingement so that his needs are fulfilled instantly. And now I will have to make a part 2 because I do want to read a little bit more of this. So, this is the Dove Lady, over and out for now.